Good morning, everyone. Broadcasting from sunny Louisiana here. I moved a little bit further west. Today, we are going to be doing an article review, and we're going to jump right into it. Now, I do apologize. I will be speaking a little quickly to ensure I cover all the material in the rubric. If you have any questions or if you need to go back and review things, feel free to rewind the video or pause to get some of the important information from the slides. So the article I selected was Teaching to Connect. That was a community building, which was community building strategies for the virtual learning classroom. This was a peer-reviewed research article by Charla Berry. So let's jump right into it. There we go. So we're going to start with an article summary. The first thing she kind of brings up is attrition in e-learning. She notes that even though e-learning is broadening the realm of education for a lot of people, she wants to know, well, why is the attrition rate lower for in the virtual learning space or in e-learning? And she wanted to focus on techniques that professors were using. And I also want to define community. This was the definition that she used in her review of literature. Community is defined as a feeling of membership and closeness within a social group, can be protective factor against online attrition. Again, it's the idea of membership, the idea of belonging, that really kind of is the focus of her definition of community. Now, the importance of community. Now, again, presented in her review of literature, she presents some research that states that some of the benefits of community are both social and academic. You have from this list, you can see more engagement, which obviously leads to mastery or higher mastery, increased collaboration, again, a life skill and helps with mastery of objectives, increased participation. Also, one that was a little bit more on the social is improved stress management because you have a little bit more of a structure around you. Obviously, the increased attrition, keeping people in learning programs, obviously very important. And then increased emotional well-being. You know, students have needs, as we've seen from other research in this course, students have needs beyond the academic needs that need to be addressed by educators. Next is issues between e-learning and community. Now, one of the big things here is distance creates a disconnection, not only between members of the learning community, but often between the members of the learning community and the content. Previous research shows that teachers can modify their course load and delivery methods to help minimize this disconnect. You know, by minimizing this disconnect, we can give users a chance to have a very authentic community feel in a distance-based setting. One of the other important aspects of community building that Barry brings up is the impact of video conferencing. I know that, or we've already discussed that there is asynchronous and synchronous learning and blended learning, so many different types of e-learning. She puts a strong emphasis on saying that adding a synchronous element to an asynchronous course can really help build community. And this comes from her previous research where she kind of focused on the needs of students. You'll see that's a little different from this research here. But again, this asynchronous element helps everyone come together at one point, or sorry, the synchronous element helps bring everyone together at one point in time. Again, really building that sense of community. Now, the big question, what is the research question she's trying to answer, is what strategies can faculty use to create a community in an online program? That's what she's trying to focus on. And this is from the point of view of professors or from the point of view of the educator. Her previous research was from the point of view of the student. So let's go over the setting. The setting is a doctoral program. So these are adult learners, and it is an online program with asynchronous workload, but they do have synchronous 2-hour class times. The platform they are using is Adobe Connect. The design, this is a qualitative approach. Barry designed, I'll go into this a little bit more detail later, but she was looking for themes and interviews. This is a case study, and it uses descriptive analysis for data collection. The participants, there were 13 participants. Many more were invited, but 13 volunteered. These professors have all different experience teaching in both the distance-based classroom and the not distance-based classroom. So you can see this is presented in the table to our right. I would recommend pausing and kind of looking at the diversity of the professors being, or the participants. Now, the questions were the same for everyone. They had a systematic approach of open-ended questions that they used. These questions focused on best practices to help build community in this program. They also shared some of how how community impacted learning in their classroom and why they've made a focus on community building. And again, really those best practices and their impact was the focus of these questions. The data collection. Now, the data collection was done via interviews. So what happened was the volunteers or the participants were interviewed, and they were using the same open-ended questions as I mentioned earlier. These interviews were recorded and then they were transcribed. And what they did is they used a directed content analysis to analyze these transcripts. And what they did is they put in keywords, certain words that are kind of big in community building, and then kind of synonyms to go along with them. Things like social presence were involved, multimodal communication, words like that, bigger buzzwords within community building, and then some synonyms for them. Now they ran the transcript multiple times. Each time they adjusted the code schemes to kind of hone in better on those overarching themes. Even though this is qualitative data, you can see that they really kind of approached it with some quantitative aspects as well. The limitations, obviously, the limitations are the fact that only the faculty's input was considered in this research. The students' perceived impact of these practices were not taken into consideration, and this is a doctoral program, so it is for adult learners. Now the results, obviously. There were 4 overarching themes that seemed to emerge. One was communicate early and often. The other was limit lecture time, increase discussion. 3 was utilizing the features of the virtual classroom, and 4 was sharing personal and professional updates as a whole. So let's kind of get into those a little bit more. Reaching out early and often. One of the things or an element that came up in almost all of the interviews was communication prior to the course starting, introducing yourself, reaching out via email or posting a video. Things that we did in this class, reaching out to the students, having a chance to bond before just the academic setting takes place. This was a time to share personal and professional information, as well as one of the things they talked about is maintaining a line of communication. Regular communication outside of the synchronous meetings is necessary, so that way the students know that though there are synchronous meetings, this course is constantly taking place. And in fact, the line of communication is always there for assistance or support. Next was limiting lecture time and increasing discussion. I thought one of the cool quotes was, cultivating community is also about facilitating interactions between peers. Because obviously, the community is not just learner-instructor, it's learner-learner. These groups are really what form a community. A connection between everyone in the learning community helps build community. One of the things they talked about to help increase discussion time was the use of a flipped classroom. Many of the educators had the students do the readings ahead of time or even watch a lecture video ahead of time so they could spend more time in the classroom or in the digital learning space with student-student interaction, direct questions at one another, small group discussions, and having dialogue and having things like Socratic seminars. This type of interaction between students really helped foster growth or growth of the community. The third was use of multiple features of the virtual classroom. Now, obviously, they're using Adobe, so their features might be a little different, but many of the features of Adobe, of their Adobe Chat, are in many of the other programs as well. Now, you need to essentially what this is saying was you can utilize the technology to foster more community building or foster more interactive discussions. One of the two big elements they talked about within the features were breakout rooms, which is where you can take a whole classroom and essentially group students into small groups and have kind of smaller video chats, synchronous video chats within a larger video chat, which really helped with building relationships, small group interaction, which is obvious, has social and academic benefits. And just like in a face-to-face classroom, allows for deeper discussions and increased collaborations. Next was the chat room features. Some of these chat room features allowed more student involvement. Students can communicate to one another, to the whole class, to small groups, or to the teacher at any given time during the synchronous meeting. This means that students can have 5 lines of communication at one time, which really is impossible in the face-to-face setting. It also allows for students who may be a little bit more reserved and not want to share a question to the whole class, be able to share a question to a peer or bounce an idea off a peer or bounce an idea off the instructor, which are really helpful. So that way students at all comfort level have the ability to participate in the learning space. The last big result or last big theme or strategy was the use of class time to share personal and professional updates. What the teachers shared in these interviews was they purposefully planned some time for informal discussions. This could be things that the students are dealing with within their doctoral program. So it's not strictly academic, but it gave them a chance to share their experiences within the program or maybe share issues, how they're connecting with the program or how other courses are going with the program. Because this is a cohort, it'd be nice, they are a community. It gives them that time to grow there. That a lot of teachers also planned time for peer-peer Q&A. So students could ask each other questions and respond to each other's questions. And another huge thing was prioritizing social engagement. Students need time to meet with one another. Students need time to socially interact and develop a social presence within the classroom. This also allows for the teacher to build rapport with the students and share some personal anecdotes or personal experiences that could make them feel more connected to the classroom and to each other. Now, this covers kind of the article summary, including the participants' results, etc. In the next video, which will be shorter, we're going to be covering the impact of this research, the importance of the research, and the application of the research. So once you're finished with this, please continue with the next video.